If we all realized how deeply the state we're in impacts what we see, what we hear, and what we believe, we would give so much more attention to where we are and being in the present moment and really accessing what we can access because we actually have the power to shift ourselves. We don't have to have outer circumstances do it. And I think we're moving into a time where more and more people are really realizing this, where we're seeing this, right? Like how am I looking at things right now? If I'm looking at things through the negative lens and through the lens of, oh, this has never happened before, I've tried so many years, I've put so much effort into it, I've done everything I know, and it still doesn't work, maybe I'm not meant for it, that is a certain lens to look through. And, we all have those days and those times. So, let yourself off the hook if it happens once in a while. But if you're actually making decisions based on that, then I would encourage you to actually look at things a little differently. Test it out before you actually make an important decision that's going to determine the rest of your life, so to speak, or the next major step, or the pathway where you're at a fork and you can either keep going in a certain direction, or you need to change the direction, or you need to up the ante, whatever it is. There are always moments that we're faced with regularly where we have a choice. And so to shift your state, instead of base your decisions on the 3D, on what you see, what you hear out there, what looks like they are facts, instead of base your decisions on that, why not shift your state and see what else becomes available to you, right? What else can you hear and see that you weren't looking at? Now, I've had plenty of times in my own life where, like I have this certain feeling of, oh, like nothing's working or it's not possible. And then I make that shift and suddenly a major door opens. And I've watched this with people I work with, my clients, how, they come to me telling me how something is just not possible and they're stuck and they really want this thing and they've tried the things, but it's just not happening in the way they expected or hoped, or maybe they don't have the tools. Maybe they're still not in that full belief, right? And so they really want the support and guidance of how to enter that. And then I've watched them literally have things like do a 180, right? Like where one moment it was one end, now it's the other. Like what's available to them has completely shifted, and it has aligned with what they really want and who they really are. And it wasn't efforting that created that, but it was them actually opening at a new level. Something simple I will share something that happened tonight. So I was watching a show and there was a song that sounded kind of familiar, and anyways, whatever it was, I really liked it. So I thought I'm going to look it up. And so I looked it up, and then I found the name of the band, and then I realized, which country they're from, and I was like super into it and like listening to a whole bunch of their songs suddenly and watching some videos, and like, wow, oh my gosh, like how come I think I'd heard that song, like it was a couple of decades ago, but I don't know that I knew them, like the name of the band or any other songs, okay? So suddenly, like, I'm all into this, super excited, and then they happen to be somewhere where I'll be traveling in a few months. And I found a show that's going to be happening on a date that I'm still likely to be there. The only thing is it's like a few hours away from where I'll be, and I don't really know how easy it is. Will I be able to get there by car, by train, by bus? What is, I don't know. So I'm going to have to find that out. Plus, it's like really, really close to the departure date that I had planned. And so then I have to kind of sort out, like, where would I, like, by the time this thing ends, where I'd be staying that night, and then how do I make it back, and so on and so forth. Anyways, 2 hours ago, I didn't even know this band really existed, right? it wasn't at all something I was thinking about, that I knew about. And then suddenly, like, I'm down this rabbit hole looking at this, and I'm so lit up by it that I'm really literally trying to go, okay, well, how can I make this happen now? Right? What will it take? And it could, it would be such a fun end to this trip as well, like super fun, right? So notice how, like, I was in one state before I saw this, and then now I was in a completely different state where I'm excited about something. I have something new to look forward to. I'm thinking of maybe I'm going to use the music and some of the stuff that I do, and like it's just kind of opened this new avenue that didn't even exist a couple of hours ago for me. And so in a way it's a small thing, and you might think, oh well, that's fun, we all do that sometimes. We find an event and we make something happen. But the point is that my state actually began to shift. My energy shifted. There was a bit of nostalgia because the sound reminded me of a time in my life when I was overseas, and the fun it was, and the people I've met along the way, and all of this, like, it just brought up a lot and good stuff, right? And it's an energy that I still feel really highly resonant to. And so the idea that I can access it, and then I can actually, like, that there's this band is still around, because obviously, lots of bands that come and go, but it's still around, and they're going to be playing somewhere that's literally within a few hours, where right now would be thousands of miles away from where I am, kilometers, and it just, as I said, began that shift. And then suddenly my mind's also thinking about lots of other things. Okay, well, if I were to make this happen, I also need to change a couple of these things over here, right? And it reminded me of my bigger vision, and it connected, right? So sometimes the things that we just love, like, that our soul recognizes, that our body recognizes, that it's just like a natural connection. There's already like a relationship there, so to speak, that can actually activate and amplify our energy so that our bigger vision actually is met along the way, right? Because when we have a bigger vision, when we have something maybe bold or something different, or something that's just, as I've said before, it just keeps calling us, there's something probably that we're going to have to change or shift or do in order to live that reality, if it's particularly different from where we are now. And we're not going to get there without changing our state. Whereas when we change our state, doors can open really quickly. And so one question I'd like to ask you is, how much space and time do you leave in your life for spontaneity, for surprises, for, going down a different street, for allowing a little extra time while you're out somewhere, just to relax and not be rushed, not to go back to the I have to's, but you're actually just present to what's around you, to what might happen, to what you could see or hear or just enjoy, that if you didn't actually slow down for that you could miss many amazing opportunities. I mean, haven't we all had that moment in our life, probably several moments, where if we hadn't turned that corner, we hadn't suddenly paused to talk to somebody, that we literally would, like, a whole chapter of our life would never have happened, right? That's how fine-tuned those moments are. So I like to leave enough room in my life for my interest to take me, for the moment to take me, for experiences to show up. And sometimes it's just simply to be in the moment of life and be alive and enjoy it. I just remember this moment where It was actually like a tough day, and I can't remember why right now, but I was in a building and I was like just waiting at the elevator, and I just felt all the frustration, and I kind of just looked up in this frustration, just kind of like looking up to the sky, looking up to God, like what's going on. And there was this balloon with a smiley face looking back at me. And had I not just felt what I was feeling and then like looked up, I would have never seen it. But it just kind of broke that whole frustration instantly, right? And reminded me of the magic of life. But yeah, I'm talking about little instances, but I've had very major instances, and as I said, like I'm sure you have too, where if you didn't do something small, that a really big chapter of your life may never have really unfolded. And of course, this can be great things, and sometimes they seem like not so great things, but those things lead us to something else. It's evolving. Everything's evolving. It's a journey. But when we have space for spontaneity, then we also allow space for our shifts to happen. And it's in those shifts that the magic occurs. And I call it magic. I love that word. I know some people get annoyed and they're all, they want everything to be scientific and measured and all that. But I actually think if you were to like zoom out, there would be a lot of mathematics behind it, right? Because everything is mathematics in the universe. And so I don't worry about that, I guess, so much because I know it's already there. The simple idea of a synchronicity, that the idea that you had to be somewhere and then maybe another person had to be there at the exact same time, and who knows what happened to each of you that day that brought you into that moment that then connected you, all these things that we can't plan them. We couldn't do it with our human brains, right? Something far bigger than us brings that to being. But the one thing that we can do is be more aware of our state. And especially when we are going into those moments of being asleep, being on default, being on like an automatic, those are the times that we can miss out the most important things. And we can even sometimes disown the successes. And I remember one client in particular who had started a business during the time she was working with me. That was one of her major goals. And, she kept almost like insisting to me that the idea of suddenly getting several clients at once was not possible for her. It just, that was just too much to ask for. And, I worked on that with her for a bit, but I could see like she had this really strong wall up, like that's just not available to me. And so I let it go in the moment, but I felt that the seed was planted. And then, I don't know if it was a couple of months later, she just happened to be like, as we were talking, having, one of her sessions, she just happened to mention that, she got a bunch of clients all at once, that somebody had actually made referrals for those people to go to her. And she talked about it as if it was just another day, ordinary day. Whereas, as I said, when the previous conversation we had, she was adamant that it was not available and possible for that to happen so quickly. And here she was, having achieved it, having experienced it, and almost out ignoring it. Like it was nothing special, like it was her normal now. And that part's great to recognize, oh, this is my, as we say, the new normal. When it's a good thing, right? We want that new normal. We want it to feel normal because it is part of our new reality. But not recognizing what actually happened and that shift had been made is like not really leveraging all that is happening for us in our life. And so those are the things that we can stay close to when we make things facts. instead of recognizing that most of what we think, and even what we think we actually know, are usually just opinions or just thoughts. There's so much available and out there that could actually just throw our own opinions out immediately, because everything is a context. Everything is dependent on what other information comes in. So if you're at any point where you're either trying to get to a new level, or maybe things are just extremely difficult, I urge you not to make any major decisions during that point, but allow yourself instead to do an experiment. Begin shifting your state to one of a higher state. Shift it intentionally. Do what you can to change it, and see what starts to come. See what begins to shift. You may not have a whole answer unfold in front of you within 24 hours, although it can. But what you will do is you will get yourself out of any negative loops that you're stuck in, any programming that you're taking on as fact instead of, that's just an opinion. I don't have to believe it, right? It's just a momentary experience that I'm having. Just a picture, a thought, a story. And changing the state. So obviously I've talked about this, I think in my earlier videos, was like, going out in nature is perfect, or going out even like in your neighborhood. It doesn't even matter, right? You suddenly start interacting with what's around you, and that's going to wake you up. Laughing, watching something funny, like just totally getting to the point where you can actually relax, right? Get out of any tension you're in. Stop taking everything so seriously. Do something super fun, or go search something that you absolutely adore, that you absolutely love, right? So just like I was looking up that band, that was just like super fun for me. And, that's like where an hour or two can fly by and I wouldn't even notice, right? So doing that took me to something that's important to me, that I value, that lights me up, that wakes me up, that brings that sense of, oh my God, I would do anything, because if I like to have this and this and this suddenly, right? It gets that passion out. And so allow yourself to shift your state. Allow it. And believe me, I know sometimes we are the ones who absolutely resist changing our state. Even if we're in a crummy state, we still can resist it. But that's just a habit. It's just a pattern. And get used to saying, no, I don't choose this. And allow yourself to choose something else. It's okay if it's bumpy at first. Eventually it's going to become your norm, where suddenly you're not wasting time. You're not going to hang out in these places anymore. You're not going to allow yourself to go down when you can go up, right? And I'm not talking about sidestepping important things that you need to face, but I'm saying about kind of lightening things up so that, as I said, you can shift the state. And if there's something to do, if there is a problem, if there is a difficulty, then you can suddenly find solutions to tackle it in ways that you didn't even know were possible. So be willing to shift your state. That's taking responsibility. That's being alive. That's being, moving with purpose, moving with intention, and not giving up and not giving in to things that really probably aren't even true, So I hope that's been helpful. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed my videos, I would love if you subscribe or like at least, or comment and tell me of any experiences you've had, because as I hear stories, then I'll be able to even share more that I think would be relevant to you. So have a fabulous day, and I'll catch you next time.